Greetings, animals! Did you miss me? I missed you!
Welcome to Story Shamans!
This week we're doing a Cubby wrap-up.
Are we done with Cubbies already?
Yup.
Moving on!
We gotta do the wrap-up first.
Smack it to me!
Seed! It's the beginning of your story. A what-if fantasy that will be explored through 4 distinct phases.
Neutral, positive, negative, and resolution.
These 4 phases will directly coincide with the 4 acts of your story.
Act 1 will be the neutral, established fantasy. Act 2, the positive aspects of your fantasy. Act 3, the negative aspects of your fantasy. Then Act 4 will resolve the fantasy. Character! Your main character and your major supporting characters should all have a collection of traits. An individual weakness.
A weakness that affects just the character.
A moral weakness.
A weakness that affects other characters.
An arc.
The character changes over time, from one thing to another.
A ghost.
Something from the character's past that still haunts them.
A passion.
Something the character really cares about.
An identity.
How the world sees the character.
An essence.
Who the character really is, under the surface.
An emphasized Cubby.
A part of the story that's being exemplified by the character.
And they'll all be connected by a character web.
All the characters will share a common trait. World. The world of your story has 4 concerns.
Location, with the metaphor. Reality, time period, and duration.
Where does it take place? What's the reality of this place like? What are the limitations the time period puts on it? And how long does the story span?
What's that? Moral! When making a moral argument, you got 3 different methods.
Pro-con, inverse, and 4-point alternation.
Pro-con! You argue the positive and the negative of one particular idea.
The death penalty is bad, the death penalty is good.
Inverse. You argue one statement and its direct opposite.
Guns should be universally banned. Versus, no they shouldn't.
4-point alternation. You basically argue one idea versus another. You do this by focusing on a particular statement for idea 1, as well as its direct opposite, and a particular statement for idea 2, and its direct opposite.
Say, marriage is the natural state for humans. No, it's not.
Versus, bachelorhood is the natural state for humans. No, it's not.
Desire. A primal desire line for your main character has one main desire that is then broken up into sub-desires.
One sub-desire for each act of your story is a good way to go.
The sub-desires act as stepping stones on the path to the main desire.
Conflict. There are 4 different categories of conflict.
Man versus man, man versus self, man versus nature, and man versus society.
In your story, you should have one main overall conflict. Say man versus man, then sub-conflicts that incorporate the other 3 categories. 1 sub-conflict per act.
So while the main conflict of your story runs through all 4 acts, a smaller man versus self conflict can be emphasized in Act 1, a smaller man versus nature conflict can be emphasized in Act 2, a smaller man versus society conflict in Act 3, and then in Act 4, the main man versus man conflict comes to a head and is resolved. Revelation! There are 3 different methods of revelation.
The question and answer method,
where a specific question is raised, with a limited number of possible answers, and then that question is answered.
Mystery and reveal method,
where a mystery is established with unlimited possible answers, and then that mystery is solved when the answer is revealed.
And unknown surprise method,
where shocking information is revealed without any previous indication. And then there are many different types of revelations.
A character revelation,
where a revelation is presented to a character.
An audience revelation,
where a revelation is presented to just the audience.
A character's self-revelation,
where a character has a revelation about themselves as part of their arc.
And a story twist revelation,
where a revelation is so massive, it changes your perception of the entire story up until that point. You should have one major revelation near the end of each act, ideally at the turning points.
Your character's self-revelation should be in Act 4 to coincide with the end of your character's arc.
And story twist revelations are usually saved for Act 4, but they could be moved if need be.
Genre. There are 8 different genre tones. Comedy,
which is happy.
Tragedy,
which is sad.
Drama,
which is serious.
Farce,
which is silly.
Action,
which is exciting.
Horror,
which is scary.
Romance,
which is idealistic.
And erotica,
which is sexy. Emotion, Your story should have an emotional theme that is primal, yet complex. You want to explore both the positive and negative sides of this emotional theme with sub-expressions. Smaller emotional ideas that are related to the overall theme. One sub-expression for each act, while the main theme runs through the entire story.
Intellect. Your story should also have an intellectual theme. That is a stimulating and thought-provoking idea. You then want to explore this theme through sub-expressions, one per act.
Narrative! There are a lot of things to consider when constructing your narrative. How many plots does your story have?
Most stories have an A plot with a smaller B plot, but you could also have a C or D plot.
What are the specifics of your narrative's traits?
What's the perspective? What's the scope? What are the stakes?
Then there's the timeline.
Is it linear or non-linear? If non-linear, then are you using any of the following? Flashbacks, flash forwards, montages, concurrent timelines. If so, then you want to use an anchor.
Then there are storytellers.
If you're using a storyteller, is it a narrator or an internal monologue? If it's a narrator, then is it in the first, second, or third person? Is the narrator inside or outside of the story? Is it justified or unjustified? Is it speaking in the past tense or the present tense? And finally, is it verbal or text? Style. This is the particular way in which you execute the other cubbies of your story.
It gives your story its unique identity.
For simplicity's sake, a useful shorthand is the fill-in-the-blank method.
Your story is a
road trip, let's say. Driving left or right all day long. Get out of the way! Huh? You get it.
Plot! There are 25 steps total.
In Act 1, there's
setup, inciting incident, raise the dramatic question, debate and decision, turning point 1.
In Act 2, there's
B-plot introduction, plan, shenanigans, commitment confirmed, turning point 2.
In Act 3, there's
B-plot convergence, new plan, destruction, point of desperation, turning point 3.
In Act 4, there's
B-plot resolution, final plan, gate, gauntlet, darkest hour, self-reflection, race to climax, showdown, climax, new equilibrium.
Symbol. Symbols are when you use one thing to represent something else. An idea expressed in a concrete way. There are three different types of symbols.
Visual symbols, auditory symbols, and action symbols.
Visual symbols are something you see, like mailboxes representing home.
Auditory symbols are things you hear, like the sound of rushing water means impending danger.
And action symbols are things that happen, like two people playing catch means they're connected like family.
Moment! Moments create a sense of reality, making your story feel more real instead of manufactured. You do this by utilizing
intentional flaws and extraneous beats.
Intentional flaws are any imperfection on the part of a character that makes them seem more human.
Like bumping into a door or misspeaking.
Extraneous beats are when you add a beat to your story that isn't absolutely necessary to your plot, but it makes your characters feel more real.
Like having a character check to see if their gun's loaded 3 times, just to be sure.
And you should have one major moment that defines the soul of your story.
Like father and son fishing at the lake at sunset. It's the part of your story that captures the essence of what this entire tale has all been about. And that's cubbies. That's it, animals. You got it all out of me.
I'm good. I'm fine. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine. Okay, Professor Bones. I'm exhausted.
Our explanation of cubbies has come to an end.
Farewell, Cubbies. We'll miss you.
They'll be back.
Next up, we'll be tackling the deep down structure of all long-form stories. The 7 seasons.